All right, everybody, we are back here on Bleav in SF Giants, and we have Cody from the Even Year Dynasty Show on Twitter, on YouTube, does great work over there. Cody, welcome to Bleav in SF Giants.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to get this going. Been following your work a long time. Cody does a lot of interviews with some big time Giants prospects. They just had Jacob Bresnahan on last week, so some good interviews over on their channel. So make sure to check out their stuff over there. But I think we have to start off talking about this manager search. I think it'd be malpractice not to. But obviously, this past weekend we got some big news about Tony Vitello. The Giants are closing in, the words they used, on hiring Tony Vitello. So I just got to ask: do you think Vitello is the inevitable choice? Do you think it's going to happen? What do you think he brings to the table? Everything on that front.
Yeah, I mean, so I do think that he is clearly their choice, the guy they want. Now, whether or not he comes, who knows? I mean, I'm not in his brain, so I'm not sure what Vitello's thinking right now. I don't know if he's using the Giants for leverage to stay in Tennessee. I get the feeling that it makes a ton of sense for him if he does inevitably want to be uh, a Major League Baseball coach. Like, this is a great opportunity for him. This is, in my opinion, and I'm not even trying to be biased here. I think it's the best job available on the market. Maybe Preller or maybe San Diego, but there's a lot of questions about working for Preller. So I think this is about as good as it's going to get as far as opportunities out there. And and I even saw you tweet this. I've been saying the same thing, but um, the reality is he could take this job, and if it doesn't work in Major League Baseball, he'll have his pick at a college job
Mm-hmm.
afterward.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense that if this is something that he wants to do, you don't know when those opportunities are going to come up again. This is an unprecedented thing, and he's got a team willing to do it. So, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense on both sides here. Now, whether or not he'll be a good coach, who knows? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's unprecedented. We don't have anything to really look back on here. You listen to the guy talk, it makes sense why players want to run through a brick wall for him. Um, I see. I think he'll be successful, but until you see it, you just never know for sure. But one thing I know it won't be is boring.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I think that's a big thing to point out is some fans think it's going to be perfect, like just come in and start winning ball games right away. But I mean, there's going to be an adjustment period, no questions asked. I mean, how does he manage a big league bullpen? How does he use the challenge system, pinch hitting, stuff like that that he's never done on this big of a stage. Obviously, he's on the College World Series, but never in a major league dugout, obviously. But I think this is. I've been saying this since the beginning. I think this is the right choice, just because I've been saying this, on the podcast recently, but if you want to compete with the Dodgers, the Padres, the teams on the East Coast, the Phillies, Braves, whoever you want to say, if you want to compete with these teams, you have to, think a little out of the box because, I mean, with Farhan, it was all safe
yeah,
picks. Bob Melvin was a safe pick. A lot of the signing stuff like that, it was all safe picks. But we've seen Buster Posey willing to, take the big swing, and so far, they've all worked out really. I mean, obviously Devers worked out, Adames worked out really well. Ended up, it took a little bit to get going, but those decisions ended up working out. So I do think this is a really exciting time to be a Giants fan if this actually goes through, which
yeah,
I think it's going to. I don't really understand why he wouldn't take the job because, like you said, and I've been saying, he could return in 2 years and get whatever job he wants in college baseball if it didn't work out.
exactly.
So I do think this is where it's going to end up going. I think he accepts a job, but who knows? We'll be updating our phones endlessly for the next 2 or 3 days. But if it did end up, falling through, something he wanted to stay in Tennessee, he was using us as leverage, just like Aaron Judge. Who are some other candidates that you'd maybe like to see get an interview or be the next front runner for this job?
Yeah, the one name that always comes up because I was really big on Nick Hundley. Like
Hmm.
that was a guy I was really hoping they would be able to pull in. I was on that for like a couple years. Like I didn't, and all of a sudden he became a front runner, and I'm like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
And apparently he withdrew himself. So beyond that, the one name I've heard that I do. He was actually the guy I thought would be the ultimate choice at the end of the day. I was a little shocked at the directions they went. Was Craig Albernaz.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, he was the bullpen coach here for a while. He's been on the bench with Stephen Vogt the last 2 years.
Hmm.
He's a guy I could see making a ton of sense that maybe Posey likes a lot. Might not be the sexiest pick. I'm not sure fans would like be jumping through hoops with excitement there, but the reality is like he's a bright coach, and anybody that's listened to him talk, he knows his stuff. He was going to be the Marlins coach before he backed out on that one. And he was part of a really good staff under Gabe Kapler. I mean, there's a lot of truth to the fact like you kind of want like a more normal version of Gabe Kapler right now running the team. Like that staff was very well prepared. I didn't want him sticking around as long as he did for a lot of other reasons with like how he handled the clubhouse, but as far as like preparation and how the team handled in-game decisions and things like that, Gabe Kapler was like, his staff did a really good job. So Albernaz would be a name that I would be kind of shocked if it didn't end up being him if it wasn't Vitello, but then again, Posey's like gone from Hundley to Vitello, so it's there's probably a name out there that nobody's even thought of yet that will come out of nowhere. So it's hard to know for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've been big on kind of Hundley. I feel like was everyone's just like, oh, it's going to be Nick Hundley. Like that seemed like when Melvin first got let go, it seemed like it wasn't going to go anywhere else except for Nick Hundley. But obviously, we get this piece this last weekend, and everything changes. But Craig Albernaz was another guy that I would have been pretty excited about just because, like you said, he's seen success at a high level under Stephen Vogt, under Gabe Kapler in 2021. He's seen what it takes to win ball games. And I'd agree with what you said about Gabe Kapler's staff. They were, I know Alex Pavlovich has been big on this. Like, Posey wants someone who is big on the details, like the small things. And that was Gabe Kapler's staff. They were, staying late, getting there early in the morning, doing the little things to find the tiniest advantage with all the platoons, stuff like that. I do want to point out, I would have, been a little intrigued if they would have given Kai Correa an interview. He's a guy who has a lot of respect around the league, but I think he is a little too similar to Gabe Kapler and some of the ideologies and stuff like that. So I think that's why that wasn't a bigger name floated around. But yeah, I'd agree that Craig Albernaz would be kind of right under Tony Vitello if this ended up falling through. But anything else you want to point out about the manager shirts? I think that kind of covers it all for now.
Yeah, I mean, like the only other names I could really think of off the top of my head, kind of an interesting one would have been a guy like George Lombard, who was the bench coach over in Detroit. But I haven't even seen his name floated out there. There's a few guys that are currently available, like David Ross, that might have been interesting. But, it seems like they're wanting to go kind of like you said, kind of an outside the box type hire. Hundley would have been interesting because I think he would have been potentially more of like a traditional, like not necessarily outside the box. The outside the box part would have been like no coaching experience bringing him in. I feel like he would have been a little bit of a throwback as far as style goes. Kind of hard-nosed player. So it's hard to know what Buster's thinking right now. But yeah.
I should point out, obviously, Brandon Hyde and Vance Wilson, I believe, from the Royals, they have both interviewed. But I do think those two guys are kind of more of like, hey, we're going to bring you in to interview for the manager job, but we think that you might like round out the coaching staff, bring him in as a bench coach, stuff like that. I think those are where Posey was thinking for those names like that, some of the more old school kind of thinking managers, even though Brandon Hyde was just with the Orioles and has some idea of like the analytical side of things.
It's a good job for a former manager that's maybe trying to get back. Had he come in and like under a Nick Hundley or Tony. I mean, I don't know if Tony Vitello is going to have his own coaching staff in mind. I'd imagine most of these guys would.
I know,
but
Posey
he
said
could
he's
be a
going to
great
be.
fit.
Posey said he's going to be a little more hands-on in terms of picking the coaching staff this time around, but yeah,
they'll have input though, and it would make sense to get a guy with a ton of experience on the bench, one way or the other, whether it's managerial experience or, if somehow they could talk Ron Wotus into coming back and doing it for like 2 more years. It'd be a good job for a guy like Brandon Hyde, where you come work under a manager that has no experience in the majors. If the Giants are really good and they're like at least going toe to toe with LA or San Diego or whoever, all of a sudden he might be a hot candidate in a year or two. So it makes a ton of sense for a team or for a guy like him.
Right, definitely. I do think this is a very desirable position to be in for anyone that wants to, like you said, get a bit higher in like coaching options. just because, I mean, you're going to be able to pencil in Willie Adames, Rafael Devers, Matt Chapman into your lineup every day, and then Bryce Eldridge, a full year of him. Like, there's a lot of excitement in San Francisco right now, even though last year's record may not indicate that. But speaking of last,
there.
yeah, exactly. But speaking of last year's record, we are going to talk a little bit about the 2025 Giants. What ended up being a pretty disappointing year, even though they did have two, really hot streaks, obviously very early in the year, and then kind of a final go for it before slowing down at the very, very end of the year. But talking about those like kind of hot streaks in 2025, who or what were some of your kind of bright spots throughout 2025? Not even though it was a disappointing year, some of the things that kind of stood out to you in a positive way.
Yeah, I mean, some positives I'll throw out there. I mean, number one, Willie Adames getting to 30 homers. As much as, like, yes, the streak is over, like, that part is fantastic, but for a guy like Willie to come in and have his, pretty close to his normal offensive output in Oracle Park could help remove some of the stink around the park when it comes to, free agents coming over thinking, oh, I can't get my numbers here. And yes, Willie did most of that damage on the road. You look at the splits, a lot of the homers came on the road, a lot of the damage came on the road, but that's part of the thing. Like, you play half your games on the road. You're not, every game is in Oracle Park. And I think once he settled in a little bit, the performance in Oracle really, got much better throughout the year. So Willie, Rafi Devers also contributes to that. He had good, he performed pretty well in Oracle Park, especially. So I think that helps. But as far as like a couple guys that really stood out to me, Landon Roop, before his injuries at the end, to me felt really like he solidified one of the starter spots. Looked like a really good mid-rotation starter, in my opinion. Now, the lack of innings, hasn't thrown a full season, hasn't gone up to 140, 150 plus innings. That's a bit concerning. Randy Rodriguez really stood out prior to the elbow injury, so that was kind of a bummer. But I think there were definitely a few guys that really stood out that were a couple of the young guys, and I'll throw also Casey Schmidt out there. Really, started to kind of develop in front of everybody's eyes, showing some of the power, showing some of the defensive ability, both at third and second base. Even though the metrics don't necessarily love him at second, I felt like he was rock solid over there. But yeah, a couple guys kind of stepped up, it felt like.
I like pointing out Landon Roop just because he was hurt for the last, third of the year maybe. And so I think a lot of fans kind of forgot how good he was for a good stretch. I think it was from June, like late June to late July, like a month-long stretch where he had the third best starter ERA in all of baseball. He went on a month-long stretch where he was really, really good for the Giants. So I like that he stepped up, and like you can really pencil him as if you sign a big starter and then sign a 5, you can pencil him as either a 3 or 4 in your rotation and be pretty confident that he's going to produce for you well.
Yeah, he might be your number 4, but like to me, he's a number 3 caliber starter if he can get the innings. And the crazy thing is, you look at his numbers, and the numbers are solid. I think he finished with around a mid-3 ERA, but that includes his last 2 starts. He came back from injury and definitely had rust. He gave up like 10 earned runs in like 5 innings.
Yeah, I think without
he inflated his numbers a bunch.
I think without those 2 starts, he had like a 3.11 on the year if you took out those last 2 starts. So it was really, really good. So that was a really big thing. And then on the Casey Schmidt front, a lot of fans are saying like you need to go out and get a second baseman. But when we saw Casey Schmidt on, there really isn't an upgrade out there in terms of second baseman.
Yeah.
It's such a weak position around the league for the most part, where if Casey Schmidt is a league average hitter playing good defense, like that is a very good second baseman in the National League. Like you cannot complain.
It's a top 10 second baseman in baseball.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like,
exactly.
If he gives you 20 homers and hits, and he can just get his average up around like 250 and plays like a little bit above average defense at second base, you're literally talking about like a top 10 second baseman.
Yeah.
Now, maybe they look elsewhere, and we'll get to this, I know, with some of your questions. Like, maybe they look elsewhere to try and get a different profile into their lineup, but I mean, as far as like, they don't need to upgrade second base, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that kind of covers some of the younger guys that took steps this year. And then I wanted to point out, you mentioned the Rafi Devers and Willie Dumb showing some good production in Oracle. And I remember when we played the Cubs, I think it was the series we won, we swept the Cubs later in the year. And I put out a tweet, and it was that meme where the guy's pointing at his head, and I said, Rafi Devers making Oracle Park look small in front of Kyle Tucker. So maybe that'll work in our favor.
I wish, but
but we'll talk about free agency in a second. But on the other side of things, in your opinion, what do you think kind of kept this Giants team from making the playoffs? Obviously, they ended up only 3 games out of a playoff spot. They would have, went 4-11 on that homestand instead of 1-15. Things would have looked a lot different. But who do you think really held this team back?
Yeah, and listen, I'm not going to put all the blame on him, even though he did kind of turn into the scapegoat. But the elephant in the room is Bob Melvin was not good this season, and the players play. So I mean, I'll get to some of the players here in a minute, but whether you want to look at the way he managed the bullpen, the way he managed some of the lineup decisions, there is no universe in which I can watch an entire season of Elliot Ramos hitting leadoff and Matt Chapman hitting cleanup and not say there's a problem with what we had going on. I mean, you basically nerfed Ramos's power by turning him into a singles and walk guy, and you had Matt Chapman with a 190 average with runners in scoring position as your cleanup hitter for most of the season. That is a problem, and there was 0 adjustments from that, and he would not deviate. So I mean, the elephant in the room, Bob Melvin was not good. And with a better manager, is this team a 90-win team with a better manager? Probably not. But I think they could have won 85, 86 games, and that would have been a playoff team.
Playoffs, yeah.
So, I mean, I don't want to put all the blame on him. And then, getting back to some of those guys, Ramos was horrible defensively this season. And it's kind of mind-boggling because he had about a 50-game sample size of corner outfield play in 2024, and he was a above league average defender. It just fell off a cliff. Now, was it mental? I mean, he made a ton of mental mistakes. He talked about how it snowballed on him. So I'm not necessarily ready to give up on him. I want to see a manager that'll hold him more accountable in the clubhouse. Maybe that is Tony Vitello. We'll see. And see if he can get back to kind of what he was 2 years ago defensively, because that would be a very good outfielder. I mean, you're looking at a 3 to 4 WAR outfielder if he's a plus defender, or at least league average. So Ramos, that was a big problem with a lot of the mental mistakes, the defense. Patrick Bailey was very good defensively this year. I will openly give him his flowers there. He's probably going to win at minimum a Gold Glove. He might win a Platinum Glove. His spot being a black hole in the lineup, where the bottom of the lineup, for much of the year, and credit to him, he came up in some clutch situations and came through, but that bottom of the lineup was a problem for most of the year. And a lot of it comes from when you have a guy that's got a 500 OPS for most of the season, it's a problem, because not only is he not getting anything done, the guys around him aren't going to get anything to hit because they know he's there. So that held back the lineup a bit. And then honestly, this is more of a team-wide issue. The inability to produce in situational at bats, constant strikeouts in big at bats, that it was a team issue. There was not one individual above all of them. I'm not gonna say it was all Bailey's offense or all. It was just a team-wide problem. Whether it was Devers up, whether it was Adames up, whether it was Ramos up, it was any of your big names, they were a part of that problem too.
And I think part of that falls on Pat Burrell. Some of the approach issues. Sure. I talk with Jeff Young a lot. He's my editor for Around the Foghorn, and literally the Giants got, I think it's the second most middle fastballs in all of baseball, and they swung at middle fastballs at the 3rd least clip in all of baseball. So it's what are you doing if you're not swinging at a middle fastball? It's just, there's obviously an approach
issue.
Yeah. So
100%.
Hopefully they bring in a hitting coach that kind of changes things on that front. I would hope. So, some of the things you mentioned, obviously Elliot Ramos was very bad in left field. There's no hiding that. And also something that a lot of fans haven't realized, Jung-Hoo Lee was not good in center field. He was very bad if you look at the numbers.
Outfield defense as a whole was not good on this team.
Especially when Luis Matos was in right field. So I do think that's something that definitely needs to take a step forward. Excuse me. And it's kind of crazy because I honestly felt like the eye test didn't really indicate that with Jung-Hoo Lee. There were some plays obviously that were bad, but I thought overall he looked like at least an average outfielder. But the numbers do not support that. But I'm hoping that a full offseason of kind of focusing on defense can, like you said, we saw Ramos be a good defender for a significant chunk of time in 24. So hopefully an offseason where he clears his head, it's not a snowball effect like you mentioned, and get a fresh start and hopefully things turn around in 26. But overall,
to your point about Jung-Hoo Lee, like I do think he was better than the metrics indicate.
Yeah.
I don't think he was good by any stretch, but I don't think he was like one of the worst defensive center fielders in baseball. I felt like he was a just kind of decently average-ish defender. It didn't feel like he was a complete liability out there, but he wasn't really adding value.
Yeah, I didn't think he was costing the Giants games in center field the way that Elliot Ramos costed them a couple of games, clearly. Exactly. So that not nearly as big of a problem as Elliot Ramos, but you'd want to see that improve a little bit next season.
Oh, and one other name I'm going to throw out is who held this team back. And again, I'm not like big on like pointing fingers at one individual, but Ryan Walker blew like 7 saves. And it wasn't just him. Honestly, this is going to be a bullpen as an entirety thing.
Yeah.
Between Walker, Doval, and Randy Rodriguez, I think they had blown like 12 to 15 saves on the year. Oh, and if you added Tyler Rogers went over 1 in save opportunities. So it was like at one point I looked and between the 4 of them, they were like 35 for 49 on saves, which the league average clip is around 80%, and they were down in like the low 70s.
Yeah.
And it's just, if you're closer to average on converting those saves, you are a playoff team. Mm-hmm. So above, with all the issues with the lineup and all the issues with Bob Melvin and all the defensive issues, if our closers were just league average, they still are a playoff team.
Yeah.
So I don't want to throw fingers at one guy, and that was only blown saves. That didn't count like the 3-run jack he gave up to Pages in L.A. in the 7th. It was just save opportunities.
I'm glad you pointed it out because that is something you have to talk about with the 2025 Giants, which is crazy because the first half bullpen, Ryan Walker did struggle all year, but outside of him, the first 2 months that bullpen was insane, like the best bullpen in baseball by a pretty good margin in terms of ERA and stuff like that. But obviously after the deadline, especially, that bullpen was a big hole for this team. But I do want to say, I think Ryan Walker, a lot of people are calling for him to be gone, but I think he's very valuable because I did this about a month ago before the season ended. But if you look at his numbers in just the 9th inning and then in just the 6th, 7th, and 8th innings this year, he had like a low 3s, I think, either a high 2s or low 3s ERA in the 6th, 7th, and 8th innings, and then the 9th inning it was like a high 4s, low 5s. So he's just not a closer. I don't know if it's a mental thing, whatever it is, but he's just not a closer. And
he went like 15 of 15 last year too. Yeah. So it was like as a closer. So it's hard. I mean, I don't necessarily like his mechanics in a leverage situation, like a high leverage 9th inning situation. Maybe in like a critical at bat, the 7th or something, you can live with it. But I mean, it's hard. I would probably if he was pitching in the 6th or 7th, no one would. I don't think people would care about it as much.
Yeah. And then on the Bob Melvin front, I wanted to point out something. Is just I don't think national media is realizing just how bad he was this year. I remember the first 2 months of the year when the Giants were like really in it. Like, I think it was June 14th or whatever it was that you were tied with the Dodgers for first place. People were calling for Bob Melvin to like win Manager of the Year. And I'm like, clearly you have not watched a single Giants game because it was just the bullpen management really stands out. But there were some other questionable calls, leaving guys in to hit at a certain situation, pinch hitting guys in a certain situation. Just really seemed like he lost his touch. And it kind of makes sense why he didn't do a lot with that really talented roster in San Diego, why he never got over the hump in Oakland. It really, really kind of shined through this year in San Francisco. I think that kind of covers it for the 2025 Giants. Just, I mean, they finished perfectly at 500, which is kind of right where they should have this year, with 2 hot streaks and then 2 just runs of awful baseball. Just really, really perfectly depicts the 2025 Giants. But moving on, obviously Buster Posey going into his second offseason, at the helm of the Giants, making the shots. What do you think the Giants' biggest needs are? And then who do you think are more realistic options to fill out those needs?
Yeah, I mean, I would say they probably need at least 2 starting pitchers. I would say they probably need at least 2 veteran relievers on this team, including one that's a high leverage of some sort. You know, ideally you're going to go get a closer.
Yep.
I don't know if they're going to actually get a closer or if they'll get, a guy like Tyler Rogers back and fill in the 8th and then just try and go with, figure out the closer spot. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I like Tyler Rogers as an 8th inning guy. He has shown so many times that you need to not have him in the 9th inning, but and that's my fear is they're going to go get Tyler Rogers and say that's enough and then put him in the 9th, and that'd be a problem in my opinion.
Yep.
But yeah, I think they need at least one high leverage. It's going to be not a cheap arm that comes in. You're going to need at least another bullpen arm. You've got some talent in AAA. I think that can fill out some of the bullpen with guys like Braxton Roxby, Trent Harris, and even some of the starters that you can convert, whether that is Trevor McDonald going to the pen or a Carson Wisenhunt going to the pen, or even like a Blade Tidwell or Hayden Birdsong. Birdsong's got great stuff. You got to figure something out though, with his command, but he's got great stuff. So I think they have the arms to fill out the pen, but they do need a couple of veterans there.
Yeah.
And then you need a little bit of a different offensive profile on this team. And I don't know where you're going to get it. Free agency is super thin. Yes, Kyle Tucker's the dream. Like if you could pull Kyle Tucker in like that solves a lot of your issues with your lineup. I don't know how realistic that is. I don't even know if the Giants will pursue him. I kind of get the feeling he might be kind of like Soto, where they just don't even kick the tires on him.
Maybe they go straight to Cody Bellinger or something.
Yeah, and Bellinger I liked 2 years ago. I was all over that, and now do I really want him at 30 years old for 7 years? Not particularly. So it's kind of a tough situation. I think if you're going to upgrade the lineup, it's going to be more via trade. I think there's a little bit of internal stuff you can do. I think you could maybe try and bring a Jesus Rodriguez up as Bailey's backup to play against lefties. Gives you a little bit better, offensive profile and bat against left-handers at least. Maybe Matos takes the next step and you feel like him and Gilbert, you can kind of platoon and right. I don't know if the team really wants to go into the season with that. Yeah. But I don't really know what you can, what's out there right now. I don't know what players are going to be available via trade. I don't like what's on the free agent market unless Ramon Laureano gets his, option declined, which the Padres would be insane to. But it's only like $6.5 million. That would be an offensive, upgrade. Defensively, you're going to just still be terrible out there, but it would be an offensive upgrade. And then, on the trade market, a name I've thrown out there a bunch is a guy like Brendan Donovan with the Cardinals, who would make a ton of sense to get traded. And I could see a Casey being a part of that package going back, because it does seem like St. Louis is going to trade Arenado. So that's a name that's a guy that, if you just compared player to player, I don't necessarily think he's like the world's biggest upgrade. If you're projecting with Casey a little bit, like I think Casey has the potential to be, kind of that caliber player, but it is a different offensive profile to get in the lineup. A guy that you could put up near the top of the lineup. He'll hit 280 every season. Little bit of power, not a ton of speed, but he'll swipe you 10 bags, and really good defender at second base. Right. So I could see something like that, but I think really we're going to be looking at like incremental improvements with the lineup, with a lot of hope on Bryce and a lot of hope on guys like Rafi and Adames and Ramos and all them getting right. And I think they're going to go hard on the pitching staff this offseason.
Posey's been very outspoken that pitching is going to be the focus this offseason, and as it should be. The last month to 2 months of the year, the back half of the rotation was awful. Once Roop got hurt, Kaiway Tank, Carson Seymour, Tristan Beck, and no offense to those guys, but those aren't the names you want starting big games when you're trying to make a playoff spot late in the year. I think getting 2 starters is where this team sees the biggest improvement in terms of like the biggest impact. And then obviously the bullpen needs help. But like you said, I was surprised we didn't see Trent Harris down the line at the end of the year, just like the last 2 or 3 weeks. But I think we'll definitely see him next year. And then Joel Peguero showed some flashes. There's some arms you can throw into the bullpen that I think you can get by, and then like you said, bring in at least 2 relievers. I wouldn't mind, Posey going out and getting a Devin Williams or Ryan Helsley, just because
Yeah.
bullpen arms are so volatile. Where maybe this year Ryan Helsley is an all-star or something like that. Devin Williams is an all-star after very underwhelming years in 2025. So there's a lot Posey can do. I know he's even said, looking at minor league signings, stuff like that. Joel Peguero was a guy who was, a minor league guy that they brought in, and there was 100 and showed some very good flashes this year. So I do think there's a lot of flexibility on the front in terms of the bullpen, stuff like that. And then, like you said, the lineup, I don't think there's a lot of changes to be made. Really, it is just right field is kind of the biggest hole, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
I fully believe that the organization has kind of moved off of Luis Matos, but I could be wrong. But just
Wouldn't
because
shock me.
you had 2 lefties on the roster at the end of the year with McRae and Gilbert, and Matos was just sitting in AAA. So that kind of makes me think that Posey has made his decision on Matos, but I could be wrong. We'll see what happens, this winter and getting into spring training.
Yeah.
Could be a trade
It's
piece
tough
too.
'cause-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough with Matos. They go out and Bob Melvin came out and said, "Oh, he's getting his shot right now." And then you look at what he did in that sample size. He had 277
Yeah.
with like a 740 or something like that OPS, but he hit 277. He had like a couple bad games at the end of that.
Yeah.
That drug down the numbers. And it was funny because you compare exactly to what he did at the plate with what Drew Gilbert did.
Mm-hmm.
And Gilbert, was hitting basically the same maybe, but all of his production came in 2 games in Colorado.
Yeah.
The rest of them, he was hitting like a $1.8, like $1.10.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, are we really going to, with a straight face, say we gave Luis his shot?
Yeah.
When that's what got him sent back down. And I get it. Gilbert's defense was awesome, and that was kind of and I think he has that contact ability. It's not as high end as Luis's, but he has the ability to put the bat on the ball most of the time. So I know they like him. I like him as a 4th outfielder type coming in. Maybe he hits enough to prove he doesn't belong starting every day, but right now it's kind of hard to feel too confident just penciling it, putting him in to right field every day. And I mean, and then you brought up Lee's defense earlier. I mean, the elephant in the room is, maybe Gilbert should be in center and Lee should be in right. That's the hard part. But we'll see what the team goes. And,
I know.
and you did ask for some targets for starters. I think the one name that I really, really want to see them go after would be Ranger Suarez. As far as like the higher end guys.
Yep.
I mean, he's really only like a 2 or a 3, but he's really, really rock solid. Kind of could slip into Robbie Ray's spot when Ray's gone as well.
Yep.
In a year. And then second tier, there's some bounce back guys. Someone brought up Scherzer, but I could see like a Shane Bieber being an option. I could see Zach Gallen being a buy low candidate. I think Merrill Kelly would be actually they're names that people might not get super excited about, but if you're signing this guy to be like your 4 or 5, then along with another good starter, I would kind of like that move.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
For the rotation, I think they go after one of the bigger or higher end guys, and then like a 5, like you said, a Merrill Kelly is a 4 or 5 at this point, but a really solid one. Maybe I wouldn't mind a reunion with Jose Quintana, like as a 5. He's been pretty good the last 2 years. And he's shoved against the Dodgers for the most part. So that's a name that kind of intrigues me if you're bringing him in strictly to be a 5. I know a lot of people have talked about a reunion with Justin Verlander, which I don't think is off the table at this point.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I think he's going to have a lot of teams calling him now after how well he threw down the line. But there's a lot. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I would kind of like if they could go get a Ranger Suarez type, I would kind of like to just see them go get a guy that can start, but is also comfortable being a bulk guy in the pen.
Yeah.
And have him compete with guys like Bleav Tidwell and Wisenhunt and those guys, because I do want there to be opportunity for a guy like Tidwell, especially, who I really believe in his stuff. Similar to Birdsong, maybe less command issues overall, but similar with where that is the question. But I'm a big believer in his stuff, and I want that opportunity to be out there to where he could go win a job. And if he earns it, I would like to see him there, and you could put the guy, someone that would be comfortable going to the pen and then maybe coming back into the rotation if stuff happens,
I think that's important to point out, just because, I mean, Landon Roop was the guy that fought for that 5th starter spot broke out, won that spot, and then had a very good year. So we could see the same thing with a Blade Tidwell, a guy you went out and got, a Trevor McDonald who showed some really good stuff in his 2 starts this year. So, like you said, there's a lot of flexibility with that 5 spot, like there was last year. But we saw this year very quickly, pitching depth can get erased like that. Like the snap of a finger, it can be gone. Well, you trade
100%.
Kyle Harrison. Jordan Hicks was bad, but you trade Kyle Harrison and Hayden Birdsong fell off a cliff, and just like that, your rotation looks very, very thin. So
Yeah.
I'm sure Posey realizes that. I mean, I don't know how he wouldn't with how thin it was at the end of the year, but there's a lot of flexibility. I would like them to go after Shane Bieber. I think he's the safer. I mean, obviously Ranger Suarez is pretty safe, but of like the Dylan Ceases, Zach Gallons, I think Shane Bieber is the safest of like those higher end guys, and I wouldn't mind a 3 or 4 year deal with him, but we'll see. I think
Yeah.
he might be the highest paid free agent starter. I know Buster Olney said that. Obviously, Cease and Gallen are going to be up there, but we'll see what happens. There's a lot that could change.
His injury history, I think, is going to limit his deal a little bit,
Yeah.
and that's where I think he could be a good buy low candidate. Yeah, I it's funny because if you could get Suarez on like a 5-year deal or 6-year deal, I'd be all over that. I just don't see his game as one that's just going to jump off a cliff. You know, his game's not velo based. It's not. He is a command. And he has good stuff, like good secondary pitches, and he's a guy. He's a pitcher. He knows how to pitch. He's not just a thrower up there getting guys to miss. You know, and we saw how he shoved the Dodgers around in the DS. This
big
is not
playoff
a
riser,
one-time
too.
thing. He has done. Yeah, he has done this in the past against LA. I like the fit, and I think in this yard, like he would be a very solid number 2.
Yep,
caliber
and
starter.
slides another lefty in the rotation where Robbie Ray's been the lone lefty for. I mean, Kyle Harrison was in there for like 4 starts, but for the majority of last year, Robbie Ray was the lone lefty. So it gives you a bit of a different look in a three-game set in the playoffs, a 5-game set in the playoffs, stuff like that. So I do like that pick as well. And then obviously Framber Valdez is at the top of the market too, but I think someone's going to overpay for him, and I don't think it's going to be the Giants.
I loved the idea of Fromber here, and then after that incident with his catcher at the end of the year,
Yeah.
I'm like, listen, I'd still think he'd be really good here. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
him and
not
Logan
gonna
Webb
sit there
together. Yeah,
it would be a great combination, and
Yeah.
he'd be great. But something about that, like, you'd need to like wash that out of his system if
Yeah.
he comes, because
with what Buster
don't have
Posey's
tolerance.
trying to build, I don't see it as a fit. It's crazy that one pitch can change so much for a guy, but he could have costed himself $20 million. Who knows? Who knows how big front office guys are holding that situation? But we'll see.
Exactly.
We'll see. I think that kind of covers the off season. Obviously, Kyle Tucker would be awesome, but I mean, we just found out that the Dodgers are going to be in play, so it's like, how realistic is it to think that Kyle Tucker is going to be a Giant? I mean, who knows? But I think we're going to kind of just finish off with some prospects talk. You obviously follow prospects pretty well. You have a lot of them on your show, so you've talked to some of them, obviously in person or on the show, I guess. But there's a lot of breakouts in 2025. The Giants farm system finally looks like it has a lot of upside, which we haven't seen in a long time, to be honest. So a lot of breakout names: Joshua Gonzalez, a Dakota Jordan, a Jacob Bresnahan, who you just had on. Of all the breakout names this year, who do you or who's your favorite? Who do you think has the highest ceiling? Stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, highest ceiling would probably be. It's hard to go against Joshua. Just kind of what he's shown at 17 years old, and he's producing like 109 mile an hour exit velocities, and you know when you're getting Jose Reyes comps and Francisco Lindor comps, and I mean it's the Dominican Summer League. Like I got to see this in full season ball at some point, but I think it's hard to ignore the raw tools. As far as players that I actually got to watch play like regularly, Dakota Jordan is an absolute freak. That guy has some of the most insane bat speed that you will see in their system. Yet his swing decisions sometimes are not the greatest. Overall, he was pretty patient, though. Like, I didn't feel like he was, like, constantly chasing. It's just every now and then he would get, like, count leverage, and it felt like he just kind of predetermined, I'm going to come out of my shoes no matter where this ball is. And he would chase, like, a slider off the plate in the way that wasn't even close in a 2-0 count, and you're like, come on, man.
But when he made contact, I mean, he hammered
Yeah,
it. Like,
loud
yeah,
contact. He didn't swing and miss nearly as much as I think people were expecting. He
yeah,
actually decreased his whiff percentage
yeah.
a lot going from college to the pros,
Hmm.
which is kind of interesting.
You don't see that. I
Really
mean, a
looking
lot. Yeah.
forward, yeah, really looking forward to seeing what he does in, like Eugene. I was hoping we'd see him there. Um, so that's one that I really want to see what happens next year. Up in Eugene, obviously Bo Davidson really showed out a lot as well. He's kind of one to keep an eye on. I would say most of their like incredible ceiling players are shockingly on the position player
Yeah.
side for once.
Yeah.
But that said, there's definitely some arms down in low A that I'm
Hmm.
gonna probably talk about here in a moment. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
they've got some arms down there. There's
Yeah.
some definite talent.
Yep. I love that you pointed out Dakota Jordan because I was actually going to say that, like, you really never see, it's rare, but like you never see a guy lower the whiff rates from college going into like full season pro ball. So that was something that was really cool to see. I mean, you drafted that guy knowing, I mean, Buster didn't draft him obviously, but Farhan, who you drafted him knowing it's going to be a project. You're going to go through some growing pains. There's going to be some whiff issues, but like if this works out, best case scenario, like that could be an all-star if everything goes together
Yeah.
at like perfectly. Obviously that's like best case scenario, but that's a guy where if you like develop him the right way, you can have a really good player on your hands. So I like that shout out. And he provides some speed, which the Giants never have.
Yeah, he stole 27 bags. I
Yeah.
mean, the San Jose Giants ran all over the place. Like, it was crazy. I mean, even guys like Jacob Christian had 10 plus steals.
Yeah.
And, he's not known for his speed. He's not slow, but he's not known for his speed or anything. So, like, guys were running all over the place. That's definitely something. That, to me, that was kind of the Randy Wynn effect when all of a sudden everyone down in the lower levels just starts running all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, Randy Wynn's like, y'all need to learn how to steal bags, and we're going to just start now
Yeah.
and read pitchers. So, but yeah, I mean, you look at Jordan. I mean, he looks like he's built like a linebacker, but he runs like a wide receiver, and I mean, he's just a physical freak, and he
Yeah.
might not be a fast mover through the system necessarily. He might be a guy they really take their time with. He's already 22.
Yeah.
I think he would have gone to Eugene had he not had some of the hamstring and oblique issues and stuff at the end of the year, but I do think they're going to be patient with his development, and he might be a guy like Michael Bush that you don't see in the majors
Yeah.
till he's 25, 26 years old, and people
Yeah.
are like, oh, this is kind of be overrated, but it's like, guys, development is not linear. Like,
Yeah.
these guys
Yeah.
are all going to be on their own timelines, and he might be a guy that doesn't get there till 25, 26 years old, but is like super good when he does.
Yeah.
So, very exciting prospect, a guy to keep an eye on. I'm excited to. He'll be up in my neck of the woods next year, so
Yeah.
hopefully, so I can go see him play in person a little more.
I mean, just look at Elliot Ramos. Like, it didn't click for that guy right away. It took a couple of years for. I mean, he had 2 cups of coffee in Major League Baseball where he was awful, and then obviously last year comes up, gets a real shot, and is an all-star out of nowhere. So, like you said, development's not linear. I mean, there's guys that you would never think become all-stars. So yeah, and then on Bo Davidson front, I really like him too. A power bat in the outfield that was just a left-handed bat, especially, is really, really exciting. I know. I don't know how much you follow just baseball, but one of the guys there, Jack McMullen, he's the radio voice for the Marlins. He said when he went to the Arizona Fall League 2 years ago, I believe, when Bo Davidson was there, he said he was one of the few guys where you just hear that sound of the bat in like BP, and it's like, okay, I really need to like follow this guy through the Fall League, through his career, just because when he makes contact, it is loud. So that's a guy that Giants fans should be following, even though he's I think he's a top 100 on Baseball America. Yeah.
He is.
So he's gotten some top 100
88
love.
or 87 or something.
So he's a guy that is a bigger name prospect now who's gotten some love. But flipping to the other side of things, I know you like some of these conversations, but who are some more underrated guys in this system that you think fans should be paying closer attention to? Maybe they haven't heard their name necessarily.
Yeah. So, well, and a lot of them they've probably heard at least a little bit recently, because a lot of these guys really just exploded at the end of last year. As far as, I'll give you kind of two. I'll give you a pitcher, and there's a few other guys. Like, I think Luis De La Torre, he's going to be really solid. Kiner Martinez has like a pretty nasty pitch mix in San Jose. Has gotten almost no attention, but I cannot ignore, and yes, he's shot up Giants prospect rankings this season, but what Jacob Bresnahan did down in San Jose was, and the improvements he's working on right now with his slider and his locating his changeup and everything. He's 20 years old. He's, I think, around 6'4", and he's just kind of goes out and throws an easy 95 to 97 as a lefty. And the off speed's admittedly a work in progress, but I saw huge gains in his control this season, both fastball command and his changeup command. I think his slider, he talked with us last week how he's working on that and landing it for strikes and landing it for chase a little better. But I think there's upside there. There's projectable upside with the shape of it. It's just a consistency thing for him. And, he's only 20 years old. I mean, this is a kid that might add like another tick or two to that fastball and be sitting in the high 90s at some point. So it's hard to not look at that and have genuine excitement on what he could be as a prospect, like as a pitching prospect. And he is a guy that does not get any attention when it comes to national attention. Like he nobody even talks about him. And I think he'll be a top, if he has another year like he did last season where he was amongst the leaders in most categories for the Cal League, which is not an easy league to pitch in. I mean, yes, it's single A competition, but it's not easy parks. I think you're looking at a guy that will get some national attention as soon as next season. And then a guy that would be incredibly underrated in their system on the position player side that actually, I lied. I'm going to give you two names on the position player side because one of them got hurt and kind of disappeared for half the year. But one of them is Giancarlo Sio, who we all talk about the Dakota Jordans and the Jacob Christians and the high draft picks that were over in San Jose, like some of the bigger names in Keelan and there was a lot of bigger names that went through there. And then you look down and there's Giancarlo Sio, who was hitting at the top of their lineup for most of the year, and he's hitting 300. He plays 6 different positions where he plays second, third, short, played all 3 outfield positions. He plays all over the map. Just kind of coming up as a super utility guy, and he'll swipe you bags. He'll hit for a high average. He has some juice in the bat. You just watch him play, and it's like, okay, this guy looks like a player. And we'll see. It's still really early in his development, but that's a guy that he's not even showing up on Giants top 30 lists or anything like that. That's just a name that I think is like people are not aware of, and he actually looks like a pretty solid player. And then the other one, the guy that got hurt, but I have to give a shout out to, is Carlos Gutierrez. Who really has gotten some love on the top 30 lists and stuff like that. And he's hitting, I think he's up around the mid-teens. And he unfortunately had a back injury that he was hoping to return in a few weeks, and then it ended up turning into like the rest of the year. I don't know if he had a setback. Miners are terrible about reporting injuries, but but early in the year, I mean, he was hitting like 350.
I went to the game on Father's Day, and like I hadn't really heard of him just because I don't follow the prospects as much as I should probably. But I went to the Father's Day game and I was like, who is this kid batting like 325 that I haven't heard of? Like what's going on?
Yeah, and he probably had like a 4-hit day and raised his average by like 15 points. It's like the dude just rakes, and it's not necessarily the loudest contact all the time, but hitters hit. And I'm a believer in that. Like, you don't have to have otherworldly power. You just need enough power to hit it over someone's head. Occasionally to like make them respect it. But
and that fits the profile.
He can flat out rake, and he's got speed, and he plays solid defense. Unfortunately, we didn't see him a lot in center field because, well, the guy that was in center field was Dakota Jordan, who was also incredible defensively.
Took a big step.
Him and Bo, give them a little shout out on their defense as well. So, I just want to give Co and Gutierrez some love. I mean, I could sit here and list off probably like 15 guys. I'm like, no, these guys are better than people think. But those are the names I'll leave out there.
Both of those guys kind of fit the profile of what Buster Posey seems to be going after a little bit more in terms of prospects, because your lineup is so power heavy all of a sudden with Adames, Devers, even Chapman. Bryce Eldridge is going to be obviously very power heavy. So you need to kind of put some pieces in there around those guys that are going to get on base, so that when those guys come up, it's going to, instead of just a solo home run, it's going to be a 2 or 3 run home run with some of these guys on base. So that's a very underrated aspect, I think. We saw that with Gavin Keelan as the first round pick. Posey's going very heavy bat to ball in terms of like the profile he wants to build in the system, it seems like. And then I like the shout out of Jacob Bresnahan just because, like you said, he has not gotten a lot of love. And I went to school in Arizona, if you didn't know that, but one of my buddies out there, he's an amateur scout, and he told me like as soon as the Giants traded for Bresnahan, he was like, this dude is nasty. Like he's like, you need to buy his stock right now because he's gonna break out pretty soon and become like one of your guys' best pitching prospects. And that's exactly what happened.
It was pretty funny too, and I'm like, we all have like different prospects that we really like, and we hit on some guys and we miss on others. And like, I will openly admit, like, I watched him pitch last year after they traded him or traded for him with Alex Cobb.
Yep.
And like, I would tell Jacob this, like when we had, I'm like, his command was so bad at that time. I'm like, I do not see it. Like, I mean, this guy's going to need to make insane improvements for him to just even be like a pitchable arm. Like, is how I like. But he was 19, and I'm like, okay, you got traded. Like, I still don't see it. But I try and keep a fluid opinion and open mind. And then early in the year, he had some bouts with command issues. Yeah. And I'm like, I mean, when you're trading Alex Cobb, I'm like, hey, whatever. You're
Doesn't matter.
Kind of a lottery prospect, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it is what. And then all of a sudden, it's like it clicked, and his command just took a step forward. And then once he's around the strike zone and he's throwing, you're like, holy crap, this guy's got good stuff.
Yeah. That's what it's like. Yeah. He had like the ability. I mean, you have to remember, like you said, he was a high school arm, so it's going to take a little bit longer to kind of transition into pro ball. Obviously, a lot of high school arms have like the loud stuff. It's just kind of honing that in and seeing more command across like the first 2 years of pro ball. So I like that shout out. And then I want to point out with the Camilo Doval trade, obviously Parks Harbor has gotten a lot of love because since he got traded, he went crazy, like an 1100 OPS. And then obviously Jesus Rodriguez is probably going to be the platoon or the backup to Patrick Bailey next year. I want to shout out the DSL arm they got in that trade, Carlos De La Rosa. He's a lefty. I did a little bit of research when it happened just because I was pretty underwhelmed with the haul at first. But it seems like they could have gotten some value. Obviously, Parks Harbor, like I said, Jesus Rodriguez. But Carlos De La Rosa could be nasty in like a year or two. And I'm going to call my shot. I'm going to say by the end of this year, he's going to be a top 10 prospect with the Giants. I think he could like absolutely break out. I've heard he throws like 97, 98 from the left side in the DSL with like a nasty slider. Yeah. So it's kind of the same thing with Bresnahan. If he can hone in on the command a little bit, and he has such loud stuff that I think that's a very underrated arm in the lowest possible levels of the Giants.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I heard is like his stuff is gross, and I'm like, okay, I'm a huge believer, like, and this is where like a lot of people ask my opinions on guys that are maybe in the complex league or the DSL, and I'm like, until I see them playing, kind of game in and game out, like I just go, this is kind of what I've seen scouts say. I'm open-minded on all these guys. I'm excited to watch them. A guy like Johnny Level, who was just getting rave reviews all the way up until San Jose. But I'm like, listen, I love the prospect, like the thoughts of it, but I got to see it. And that's how it is for me with a lot of these pitching prospects and guys like De La Rosa. And I, you see Roger Munter likes to post stuff here and there. Like you can see a little bit of his stuff. Every now and then you get like that. The GoPro in center field that's like blurry and you're watching them pitch a little bit, and it's like, okay, it looks good, but like I want to see them in live batters,
same thing with Rainer Arias. Everyone thought he was going to be like a top 5 prospect, and then this year it was bad. Like he didn't really show anything. So
and I wonder if the wrist injury that he had wrist injury back-to-back years, and I'm like, I wonder if that's still impacting him, whether it's his power or. His feel with the bat, like it's tough. Like I don't know. He's still young. He's got a lot of time. And another guy, you brought up the Doval trade. The one guy you didn't mention, and I do want to just say like he's got pretty good stuff. Is Tristan Vreeling. I don't think he was like just a throw in by any stretch. Like I think he was actually like he's an arm that has some upside. Maybe he doesn't turn into much anything. You never know, but. He's got a nice, mid-90s fastball and good slider, and I just, we'll see.
It seems like Posey did really well at the deadline so far. Like, it's pretty crazy that, I mean, an ex-player just came in We haven't seen a lot of negatives with Posey at the helm so far. I mean,
Yeah.
picking up Melvin's option seems like a bad look now, but at the time it made some sense, saying he wanted to build morale in the clubhouse when they started losing, stuff like that. But that's really the only negative on his kind of resume, or whatever you want to call it, in his first year at the helm.
Yeah, and honestly, I throw that one aside as just it's part of the game. It's part of doing business in the majors where
Yep.
you don't want your players playing under a lame duck manager.
Yep.
And that's just the reality. You have to be prepared to eat some money because it's not good to have these guys playing for a guy that they know is gone after the year. They want some sort of security. So it made perfect sense to me to pick up the option. As much as a lot of us don't like it, it just, the logic path there is sound in my opinion. And and to your point, like I actually think the best thing Buster Posey did, and I'm going to point this out as far as the trade deadline goes specifically, the best thing Posey did was hiring Zach Manassian as his GM. And his background, and I said it at the time they hired him, his background as a pro scouting director, like with the Brewers, his job was to go identify the talent. And that's how they ended up with guys like Carlos Gomez. That's how they ended up with guys like Josh Hader. That's how they ended up with guys like Gene Segura. Like they constantly, like he knows other teams' systems as well as his own, and all like all professional systems. So when they made that trade, it's like I didn't think, oh, this team's gonna suddenly be great at amateur drafts, or they're gonna suddenly be great in development. I thought this team's going to be really good at identifying talent in other systems that's maybe underrated, and going and getting them, in targeting them in trades, especially if they're selling off a guy. And we saw it with the haul he got this year, and even going back to last year. Like, his job with the Giants under Farhan was director of pro scouting, and they go and get Sabine Ceballos and Jacob Bresnahan at the deadline for a couple of really
nothing.
Cobb had no value.
Yeah.
He was hurt all year, and Jorge Soler was hitting about 195 at the time of the trade. Like, it's not like he had a ton of value and a bad contract, and they somehow got some really quality players there. So
say what you want about Farhan, but he did know how to make a trade.
He didn't always have the like you mentioned earlier, he didn't have the maybe the intestinal fortitude for the position, but he could swindle value. Yeah, that's for sure.
And now he's probably going to win a ring. Now he's probably going to win a ring with the Dodgers. So fun.
I will say this about Farhan Zaidi: he is a great number 2.
Yeah. He shouldn't be calling the shots.
Find value.
Yeah, he shouldn't be calling the shots, but he's a very good tool to have in your front office. But I think that. Yeah, I think that we kind of covered everything from last year's team to this offseason prospects, and then obviously the managerial search. Hopefully we get some updates on that side of things today or tomorrow. That'd be really fun to start talking about an official Tony Vitello as a manager, but we'll be following that. I just updated Twitter, and I don't think I see anything. So we'll be following it over the next couple hours, couple of days. But thank you, Cody, for coming onto the show. We really appreciate it. A lot of fun, good conversation. Went for almost an hour here, so a lot of good things we brought up, and I really appreciate you coming on. And if you want to tell the listeners, where can they find all your stuff at?
Yeah, so you can find us on YouTube at Even Your Dynasty Show. On X, you could follow me it's at EYD Show. We also have Ricky, one of our co-hosts. He has an IG page that he runs. It's really good. We'll have a lot. He drops news. He doesn't put out the fake stuff or anything like that. It's just news. Sometimes he'll put out rumors, but he's not going to say, hey, we're about to sign someone that they're not. He'll put out some of that, and a lot of prospect highlights, player highlights during the season. So you get a lot of really good stuff on that. It's at SF Giants Cove There is a similar named one. It is not the Cove Talk or whatever, so make sure it's SF Giants Cove. Yeah. And also, we're in the process right now of getting a website up and stuff. So
awesome.
It'll just be EYD Show EYDShow.net. So
Awesome. Well, make sure to go check out all of Cody and Dan and Ricky's stuff that they do. They do a lot of good work with, especially on the prospect side that some people may not cover as well as they do. So make sure to check them out over there. I do want to say Kurt Suzuki just got named the Angels manager. So that takes
there's
out
one candidate out.
yeah, that takes out a guy that the Giants did officially interview. So not that important because Tony Vitello is obviously the choice, but something to point out that did kind of affect the Giants, I guess. But thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. A lot of good conversation. We'll have to do this again sometime soon, maybe a little off-season check-in in a couple months or something. But thanks for coming on, Cody.
Yeah, thanks for having me.